One. My name is Dr. Lisa, and I'm the faculty member who is leading this trip to Singapore and Tokyo. I used to live in Singapore. I was a professor there, and I also used to work in Tokyo. So one of the reasons I'm conducting this study abroad is so that you, as a student, can understand what it's like to visit both places and, come as a tourist, but also think about what might it be like to live in one of these cities and work in one of these cities, just as I did. And I'll be introducing you to people who live and work there that aren't, technically from Singapore. You'll obviously meet some people that are Singaporean, but you'll also meet people that have moved there for their careers and all types of careers. So let me just give you an idea of the itinerary. Let me share my screen. So this is the itinerary. We leave on a Tuesday out of Chicago, and we take an international airline. We take ANA, and so we fly nonstop from Chicago to Tokyo, and then we change planes and then go Tokyo to Singapore. And I would say for most students, those 2 long flights are probably, from the feedback we got from them, was their least favorite part of the trip, but they said they got caught up on some really great movies because there's tons of movies that you can select from. And then we just, we all usually sit together. And so we just have a lot of fun on the flight. And then of course, we change planes there in the airport. We stay all together so no one gets lost. And then once we arrive in Singapore, we have a motor coach that's there for us, and it collects all our bags, takes us directly to the hotel. And then we go right to sleep because the next morning we've got a busy day. So we'll be walking to a food court so that you're all familiar with what that's like, and before we go on a really extensive tour throughout the Central Business District. And then we'll also do things like ride the MRT, which is their subway system. It's their CTA, except that it's been voted the world's cleanest public transportation. And last year, a lot of the students were a little nervous. They're like, well, I don't know if I want to ride the public transportation in Singapore. And I said, trust me, I used to live there. It is the nicest subway you've ever been on. And everybody was blown away. In fact, they ended up using it all the time while we were there. And what we're going to do is just get to see everything that's in walking area of our hotel, so that in the evenings when you have free, you can pick wherever you want to go to dinner. And as you saw from that video beforehand, there's so many fun restaurants for you to try. We will also be going to some of the spots that, if you've seen the video or seen the movie Crazy Rich Asians, we go to a lot of the spots that they go to. So we'll try satay, we'll try chicken rice, and just give you kind of that feeling of a lot of the scenes that you saw in the movie. We're also going to be seeing they have a river that goes through the city, and in fact, our hotel is right nearby it, and we're going to take a bumboat ride down that river, which then goes into the Marina Bay area. So that gives you also a really good idea of what's around in the area. That evening, you'll have on your own to explore with your friends that you've met on the plane and that you've met in class in the weeks building up to the study abroad. Then we will meet, there's in the hotel every morning there's breakfast. So every morning there's breakfast in the hotel, and it's, traditional Western breakfast, but then there's also Indian food as well as Malay and Chinese food. So you have a wide variety of things to pick for breakfast, as well as juices and coffees and teas. So no one ever goes hungry, that's for sure. Then on the second day, on Friday, what we do is we learn about the Chinese immigrants' trip to Singapore and how that really changed the landscape of Singapore. So we'll go to just really see the traditional buildings, understand the history of it. We'll also go to a hawker center. And for those of you that have ever watched Anthony Bourdain shows, these are the hawker centers that he's been to, and a lot of them have gotten Michelin stars, but yet, of course, they're very affordable, like $5 to $10 for lunch. Then we'll also go to two different Chinese tea places. One is traditional, and in fact, the Queen of England, the Prince of Wales had been there and had tried their tea. Then we'll go to another tea place where you're going to mix your own tea. So you'll take black tea, green tea, and then different things like lemon peel and other dried items to put in your own tea and create it. And you name it yourself and get to take it home with you. And then again, that evening is yours. And every day we're going to be spending time with approximately 4 Temasek Polytechnic students. So these are college students that are your own age, and they're going to be joining us on the trip. And from the feedback from the students last term, that was their favorite part, is they really enjoyed getting to meet other college students their own age, and then they get to hang out with them that night, and then throughout the week. On Saturday, we explore the Malaysian history, because Singapore is it's at the very tip of Malaysia on an island, but obviously because they were a part of Malaysia at one point, that's a big influence. And so we're going to go to the Arab Street area, and we'll visit a mosque. We'll also understand the Indian influence as well, and see an Indian temple. And then we'll have lunch at a Malay restaurant. That afternoon, we're going to go to Marina Bay Sands. So that's the big, if you saw the video before, it's got the 3 towers, and then it looks like it's a surfboard on top. And we are going to meet up with one of my former students, who is now in the event management department. In fact, she's in town this weekend, so I had dinner with her, and there's just a lot of exciting things that are going on, and so you'll get that opportunity to tour it and see all aspects, including we'll go up to the top of Marina Bay Sands. And if you want, of course, you can go to the casino. That evening you'll have on your own. I try to give you one day for you to be able to explore each destination on your own. And by that time, you will have made close friends with not only your DePaul fellow classmates, but also with your the new people that you meet from Singapore, from Temasek Poly. So you've got that day to explore on your own, whether you go to the beach or you go to Universal Studios. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Of course, souvenir shopping is also a big aspect for everyone. Then on Monday, we're going to go with the Temasek Poly students, and we're going to tour Peranakan culture, which is a combination of all of those cultures together. And then we'll go to their university, we'll enjoy lunch, and then we're going to complete a short group project. And again, then the evening is on your own. And then that's your last night in Singapore. And then on Tuesday, we leave to go to Tokyo. So we fly from Singapore to Tokyo. We check into our hotel, which is in Shinjuku, which, if you've ever seen any film about Tokyo, you've seen it. It's a really busy area. I'd say it's kind of like River North, but taller buildings and more people. It's amazing. So that's the area that we're going to stay in. That next morning, we're going to have a small breakfast at the hotel, because we're going to have an extensive Tokyo food tour. And it's like it says here, it's 6.5 hours journey through time. And you're learning all the aspects of how food has changed over the years, and from the present, the past, as well as the future. And again, at that point, you will have tried a bunch of different restaurants, and you will have a very good idea where you might want to have dinner that night. Then on Thursday, we are going to go to Hakone, which is a warm springs area and a nature area. And that's going to give us the opportunity to see what it's like to live in the countryside of Japan. So we will go do a tour, which includes an open air sculpture museum. There's a gondola ride through the region, and then a lake cruise. It's a lot of fun. And then we check into the Ryokan. And I want to show you, I'm going to stop the share on this, and I'm going to share with you just some quick snippets of what it's like in a Ryokan.
You will be attended to by one person during your entire stay, who will take care of your check-in, serve your meals, prepare your room, and bid farewell when you leave. We highly recommend checking in at least 1 to 2 hours before dinner, which usually starts around 6 or 7 p.m., to allow time to be properly greeted, settle in, and enjoy a nice relaxing hot bath before your meal. Your room. Ryokan rooms can vary a lot depending on the size, style, and price of the ryokan you're staying at. They typically can accommodate 2 to 4 occupants, have tatami floors with a low table at the center of the room, and often have an adjacent smaller sitting room with Western-style table and chairs. Guests in a ryokan sleep on futon, Japanese mattresses, which are stored in a cabinet inside your room during the day and prepared by the staff in the evening during your meal.
Okay, so then I'm going to give you a little bit more insight on what the meals are like. Because that's a big reason we want to go as well.
One of the highlights of a ryokan stay is getting to enjoy traditional and local Japanese cuisine. Meals are often kaiseki ryori, or multi-course Japanese-style haute cuisine, which starts with an appetizer, followed by several dishes prepared using a variety of methods, including raw dishes, a soup, a boiled dish, a grilled dish, a deep-fried dish, a steamed or dressed in vinegar dish, and conclude with rice, miso soup, and pickles, followed by a dessert. Dinner often starts at around 6 or 7 p.m. and is served either in your room, in a separate private dining room, or in a communal dining area. Guests traditionally eat their meal while wearing their yukata, although regular clothing is acceptable. Note that if you have any food restrictions, it is important to notify the establishment prior to your arrival so modifications can be made to the menu.
So that gives you a little bit of what it's like to stay in a ryokan, and it's one of the reasons that I want to include it, because you'll get the chance to really understand, like, we're obviously going to do a food tour the day before, but then I want you to understand what it's like to stay in a ryokan. This will give you very historical context of living in Japan. Let me go now back to the itinerary. So then we'll also, have some fun activities at the ryokan that evening, just ourselves. And because it is a small ryokan, we will be pretty much the only people staying there. So it's a family-owned establishment, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. The next morning, we'll get up and we will take the bullet train back to Tokyo. We'll have lunch on our own, and then we're going to work. We're going to show up with an industry panel of experts who've moved to Japan to their career, or they've moved there to start their own company. And that's to give you some insight of what would it be like to live in Japan, to live in Tokyo, work for a company, move with the company to a new destination, or several of the people that are part of the panel also have started their own companies. We'll do something similar to that when we're in Singapore as well. They'll probably show up during our breakfast time. So you've got the chance to have informal chats with them and understand a little bit more what it's like to become an expatriate in a foreign country. Then on that Saturday, we're going to do a full walking tour of Tokyo's cultural highlights. So everything, all the different shrines, all of the, I would say, famous places that you've seen or that you've read about in Tokyo, we're going to be including that in the tour. And it's just a lot of fun. It's walking. We'll be using the public transportation there, which is not only clean, but it is massive. So you'll get real used to using it. So every evening that you've got on your own, even I could figure it out. So someone that's older than you, that's not as tech savvy as you can just put in your destination on Google Maps, and it will walk you through where you need to go, from what exit, what entrance to take into the public transportation, what train to get on. It's amazing how simple it is. Then you also have Sunday to explore Tokyo all on your own. So there might be something special you want to do. And as well as there's things that, you know, a small group of us could do if you wanted, if you'd like to. There's sushi classes, there's art classes, there's all kinds of things that you can sign up to do. So it's basically your last day of your study abroad to enjoy and do something fun with the friends that you've made on your trip. And then Monday morning, we have breakfast and then we leave for the airport. And it is a nonstop flight from Tokyo to Chicago. And then we arrive back in Chicago on Monday, December 11th at 7:20 a.m. And this just kind of gives you an idea of some of the companies that I've already talked with in Singapore that would like to meet with you all. But at the same time, if there's you know, depending on what your major is, we've had all kinds of majors from peace and conflict resolution to art gallery, someone who wants to be an art gallery owner. So whatever it is you want to do for your career when you graduate in class, that's one of the things that you talk to me about. And I will help find someone for you to meet and talk about what it would be like to have a career either in Tokyo or Singapore with that type of industry. So let me go ahead and stop sharing that. And what I thought we'd do now is just open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, go ahead. How do you pronounce your name? Michaeline?
Michaeline, but Mickey's a lot easier.
Mickey? Okay, thank you.
My question was, when we go, I forget the name already, to be started with an R, I believe.
The Ryokan in Japan?
Yes. How many will it be to a room while we're there?
It's usually, like it said in there, it's 2 to 4, but let me confirm with everyone gets their own bed. That's always my requirement. So you would get your own bed, but I will confirm because we were at a different Ryokan and the one that we really wanted to be in finally opened up that could accommodate all of us. So I will confirm the number of students per room. I'll send her a message when we get off the Zoom and I'll let you know.
Okay. And then another question was, how many people are generally accepted into the program?
We usually have 20 to 22 students in the program. Yeah. So, and then what happens is when we're in the different destinations, sometimes we break into 2 different groups of like 10 to 11, because as I mentioned in Singapore, we'll have about 1 to 2 Singaporeans joining us as well. So that way the group is pretty small, because just like Chicago's not too bad, but there are some places in Singapore and in Tokyo where the streets and the sidewalks are so narrow that it's tough to put 20 to 25 students going down a street. So a lot of times we break into 2 groups just so that it's easier to move around. And then also because we're going into so many restaurants, that way we can get in and out a lot easier than trying to accommodate 20 people. But usually, I should say all the time, the restaurants know that we're coming on the tour, so they have a place ready for us. And it's so much easier to just kind of partition off an area for 10 to 12 people than 20 to 25. That's a good question. Thanks. Who else has some good questions? Is there anything in particular anyone want to oh yeah. What's your question?
Okay, so my question is, would you say this program will only benefit people who want to work in Japan and Singapore?
Not necessarily. I kind of have that spin on it because that has been a question when I first started doing these tours like 10 years ago. People were curious, like, what would it be like to live here? And so they wanted to meet people. But if you are going purely as you want to know what it's like to visit both of these places and travel like you're a local. So that was the big thing, is that the first year that we did a similar tour, we were on a big motor coach and it took us every place. And students were like, hey, I'd rather walk, I'd rather take public transportation. And then that's when I switched the tour to have it be very similar to if you and a friend went on vacation, what's the experience that you're gonna get? And I find that most people, especially in this part of the world, especially in Asia, public transportation is so easy, just like it is in Europe. So giving you that opportunity to walk around, and because we eat so much, it gives you a chance to get a lot of exercise in. So yeah,
No, thank you for answering my question.
sure. Who else has a question?
I have quite a few questions.
Sure, great.
Once, so Rhea, I think that's how you say the name,
Uh-huh.
ask her question.
I was just gonna ask, what was the total price for the trip? And up to how much scholarship can cover?
That is all through the study abroad. I know scholarship can cover as much scholarship as you get. And I know as long as you apply before May 1st, you will get access to a lot of you automatically go into the pot for the scholarship. They're still working on the price, but it is around $5,000, and that includes pretty much everything. Your airfare, as I mentioned, your hotel stay, quite a few meals. The only thing that's usually not, all your breakfasts, several lunches. What you need to pay for is what you want to do in the evenings, and then souvenirs. And what I found with most students is they were actually shocked at how little they had to pay for out of their pocket. In fact, a lot of them said, I've been on other study abroads and I had to pay for a lot of things, and I can't believe how much is included in this one's, when we were on the trip. So, like I said, I was corresponding with Scott about an hour before this presentation started, and they're still finalizing all the prices, but it's going to be around $5,000.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then Mikey, did you say you had some more questions? Mickey?
Sorry, it was
That's okay.
difficult to unmute. One of the questions I had was, what is usually, because usually with the study abroad, it says at the bottom, students in the past mentioned that they brought this X, Y, and Z amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say would be the amount for this one? For those things like extra meals, souvenirs, things like that.
It's really hard to say because some students spend thousands of dollars, even though they're like, I need a scholarship. And then I see everything they've bought and I'm like, wow. It is so all over the board. Like I said, I've had some people who pretty much had the whole thing paid for by their scholarships, but yet they spent a fortune on clothing and souvenirs and things for themselves. So it really just depends on what it is you want to do, like how much you would spend for dinner. In Singapore, spending $5 to $10 US on a meal, you're going to feast like a king or a queen. Tokyo dinners are going to be a little bit more. They're going to be more between $10 to $20. Again, depending on what type of restaurant you stay at, or excuse me, that you choose. And then souvenirs, it's hard to say because I've seen students buying expensive jewelry and scarves and clothing. So, but then I've had people that just buy little trinkets, like, in Singapore, you can get some really cool souvenirs for just a couple of dollars. That's where students have always been like, I can't believe how many, great souvenirs I've gotten. And this is the nice thing is that we're there during December. So while it's freezing cold here, it's really warm in Singapore. It's going to be in the high 80s, low 90s. So the hotel that we stay at in Singapore has a rooftop pool. So definitely bring your bathing suits and of course bring shorts, because there's only a few times that we meet with industry. There's only one time you might want to wear like I don't know, khaki pants or a nice pair of jeans with, a nice shirt. But the rest of the time, because we're touring and no one's expecting us to be dressed up, definitely wear shorts, and a comfortable, polo, nice type shirt. Just trying to think what else students spent money on. There's a Universal Studios, and there's a night safari that you can go to, but nothing is really that expensive. It's really just depends on the level of how much you want to spend. Like I said, students a lot of times think they don't have a lot of money, and then they end up being able to get a lot of souvenirs, and they're really shocked at how affordable the food is, particularly in Singapore. And like I said, we're going to show you good places to eat that are affordable so that it fits into your pocketbook. We want to make sure everyone can afford this.
Okay, I did have 3 other questions.
Please keep asking away.
For the when will they be conducting the interviews for the program?
We are going to be doing those probably the first 2 weeks of May. But since you showed up at the at this session, this gives me a chance to get to know those of you that have this actually is an opportunity for me to just get to know you. So it's not a really formal interview. It's more just of a fact of you getting to ask me questions, and vice versa. But this session right here technically counts as an interview. So you're doing great.
My second question was, because right now I'm doing a study abroad in Berlin, and that
Oh,
class
great.
is focused on the history. So I was
Mhm.
wondering, what will the class be like for this program, being that it's in Singapore and Tokyo?
Yes, well, definitely history is going to be included for both destinations, not only in the class session, but also when we're there. You will
Mhm.
understand the history of both destinations. The others is thinking about your future career, whatever that is. We had one student last year who really, sorry, my dog's just now decided to be noisy. So this is Hamilton, he'll be joining us. He really wanted to go to graduate school somewhere in Asia. And so that was a big focus of the trip. So on his day off, he went to one of the universities that he was interested in Singapore and also in Tokyo. And he met up with the professors and the graduate students and talked to them. He wants to go into sustainability. So he was talking with them about their sustainability. So there were some students that were interested in, like, what would it be like to go to graduate school here? Others, as I mentioned, were curious about if they worked like in the hotel industry, or if we had a lot of students that were in accounting or finance, which are big in both those destinations. What would it be like? One guy was an Apple genius here in Chicago. And so he wanted to set up appointments to meet with the different Apple stores in the 2 locations. So I'm really here to help you navigate if you do want to meet with people in either of the cities. But if you just want to meet with the students in Singapore and just explore both cities, that's also what I'm here for too. I just want everyone to be able to get out of it what it is that's important to them while they're in both destinations. And for a lot of people, I've found, like I said, over the years, they're interested in what would it be like to work in one of these destinations. And I think that just comes from me having worked in Singapore, and then also and also the same thing, worked in Tokyo. What's it like? Because it is different. And just thinking about one of the things that we go through in the class is, what are some of the things that you need to think about if you want to move to another country? Because sometimes just like banking is a little bit different, and getting a new cell service, and just talking about some of the things that can be challenging, and then thinking about it maybe 10 or 15 years down the line, if you decide to get married and have kids, what's it like for the kids? So really just kind of exploring all that and hearing from people that have done it, and especially hearing from entrepreneurs. But you would be surprised at how many companies that are US companies are in Singapore, from all the major accounting firms and financial firms, but then even like Garrett's Popcorn has a location. So it's really funny to, but they do have different flavors because everybody kind of likes their own flavors depending on, what city you're from. So it's a lot of fun to kind of explore and see what the opportunities are. What's your next question?
My last question. I did notice in the video that they did mention wearing yukatas, and I was wondering, is there going to be like a time where we would be wearing traditional clothes while in Japan?
Just in the ryokan. So when we check in, we will wear them when we're in the inn, but rest of the time that we are as we're going through the town of Hakone, we will definitely be wearing whatever's comfortable. And Tokyo is going to be a little bit cooler than Singapore. Singapore's on the equator, whereas obviously Tokyo is farther north. I would say in December, Tokyo is not as cold as Singapore. I'm sorry, it's not as cold as Chicago. I had like a light jacket on when I was touring around and wore jeans, but it's not like Chicago where you've got to have your really big winter coat. So sweatshirts, that type of thing, and a light coat will keep you warm. So it's really only in the inn that we would wear the traditional clothing, although there is a part of Japan and Tokyo on the tour where if you want, and it's actually where we'll end one of the tours, some students want to get together and you can change into traditional clothing, you can rent them and then get photos taken, and that's a lot of fun. So that's definitely an option, and that's like a thing that a lot of people do. So it's an option for you if you want. That's a good question.
I did lie. I had one more question.
Okay, you can ask as many as you want.
So I do know that in the program information, I've noticed that a lot of them say they don't include like suitcase luggage. And then like, for instance, Berlin says that it doesn't, but then when I spoke with the teacher, they're like, no, we do.
Wait, what do you mean they don't include suitcase or luggage?
Let me see if I can pull up the website. It's one of the things that's listed as like not included.
That's really strange. Yeah, because I know, when you fly, your bags will be, as long as you've got one checked bag, and usually that's about 40 to 50 pounds. We'll check the requirements, and then you have one carry-on bag and then like one backpack or personal item. So baggage is included, and we highly recommend not taking more than one checked bag, because then you've got way too much luggage. You really do. So I'm trying to think why luggage isn't included.
Because it says other expenses not covered, and then it says like airline baggage fees.
That's only if you go over the airline baggage fees, but as long as you stay within their fees, we're good, because the airline that we have lets you have one checked bag at a certain amount. And like I said, I can't remember if it's 40 or 50 pounds. And then like a backpack or a big purse, and then like a small rolly bag that are their dimensions.
Okay.
So that's included. But, there have been students in the past. One girl bought, because she was a musician, this really expensive violin, and that had to be packed a certain way and had to be, she didn't want it crushed. So that was not covered by study abroad, but I don't recommend people doing that. It's just, she was worried about it the whole time, and she should have just shipped it back a different way. But so it's like little things like that we don't even anticipate students doing that, they do. And then study abroad is really just saying for their own, I guess, protection, that those little things they don't pay for. But no, your luggage will be handled through the whole thing. And in fact, as I said, when we get off the airplane and we go through customs and we get to a motor coach that's going to take us to the hotel, they'll, take your bag, and we pay for that motor coach to take us to the hotel. We pay for that man to handle our luggage, so you don't have to worry about that.
That was the last of my questions.
Okay, well, you've got some good questions. Okay, so it looks like Mika's got a question. What's your question?
Hi, so I'm actually like wondering about like the academic side. And my advisor told me like some study abroads, they only meet like a few times per the quarter, and then there's like a project after coming back. How's that going to work for this class?
So we've got 4 sessions, and they're on Fridays, and they're usually from like, let me see. They're usually from like 1 to 3. That way, you've got a chance to get something to eat beforehand, and it's 2 hours. And then there is part of it that's online, so that you can read some articles, review some videos, and then come to class prepared. That way, when we meet, we are staying focused 100% on the study abroad, and we're interacting so that you get to know each other. You can all figure out who wants to room together, because it's 2 to a room in the hotels in Singapore and Tokyo. So like I said, 4 sessions, 2 hours each, and then with some online things for you to prepare for the classes. And they're on Fridays. And I tentatively have the dates set, and I would definitely send those out to everyone that decides to go on the trip, so you can make sure months in ahead that those days work for you. And then there is a final project due, but it's your final project, meaning, let's say you wanted to learn more about the history of Singapore and Tokyo. Maybe there's a specific part. You would do a project related to that. Then maybe you're an art major. And so I'm just giving you real examples that have happened before. And I don't think I have it in this office, but one of my students was an artist. And so she ended up making these beautiful hand drawings of different destinations that we went to. I mean, I was blown away at how amazing these pieces of art were. So one guy really wanted to go work in casinos, and so he did a thing on what casinos are like in Singapore. And then another person really wanted to go into accounting. So it just depends on what it is you want to do. Some people said, I enjoy being a writer and a blogger. One woman was really into fashion, I should say still is into fashion. And she decided to do a fashion blog, and then it actually ended up getting a lot of exposure, and Condé Nast ended up hiring her based on all the fashion blogs that she was doing while she was there. And she works for Vogue now. So it's one of those things that I want you to do something that's going to help you with your career, or something that you want to study. I'm not going to force you to do a particular topic. This is your study abroad, and it's what you want to do. I'm going to be helping make sure that you have a fantastic learning experience when you're in Singapore, and that you'll meet Singaporeans, so you know what really how friendly and nice people are in this amazing country that's growing by leaps and bounds. And then the same thing in Tokyo, getting to understand the history, understand the food, and then I'll introduce you to professionals in the industry, from artists to entrepreneurs to, again, whatever it is you're wanting to learn. But that final project is really up to you. And it's not a major product. It's more of a reflection on whatever it was you were trying to accomplish during the study abroad. So that's a good question. I'm really trying to customize this for you so that you're not doing busy work that doesn't really have any significance to you in your life.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure.
And then I just had one more question.
Yeah.
It's like relating to the curriculum during like just the like regular part of the quarter. Do you like believe it's like harder, easier, or like lighter load than like say a normal class or like normal load?
Oh yeah, it's much less because like I said, we only meet 4 times. Like just to give you an idea, because I've got the syllabus, I was working on it. So you'll review things online on D2L, and then you'll just write a mini essay, which is 1 to 2 pages on the information. So like the first class is on Singapore, the next one is on Tokyo and Hakone, the next one is on, pursuing a career outside the US, just like what it's like to be an expatriate. And I would say maybe you would need to prepare for a class like 2 hours, and then class is 2 hours. So that's about 8 hours because there's 4 classes. And really the meat of the class is when we're on our trip. So it's pretty light because I just want to get you acclimated to everything. And my goal is, because we go over the itinerary, we go over what to pack, what not to pack, so that when you're packing and you're getting ready for the flight, like the day before, you feel really comfortable about what's going to happen. But then when we're in the country, we're having breakfast, we're going on a tour, we're busy, and then that night it's up to you. So you definitely can fit in the classwork during your normal quarter because of the fact that where we spend the most of our time is when we're out of the country.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes. What's your question? Honey, how do you pronounce it? Hania?
It's Hania.
Hania, that's pretty.
So my question is, I'm sure there's like amazing students that are applying. What do you really look at when you're accepting them? Because I'm sure maybe some students might not get accepted. So what do you really look at for someone to get accepted?
I just look for someone who's excited to be a part of the trip, that wants to learn something. Because sometimes one time I got an application from someone that was really excited about going to Singapore, but they weren't excited about going to Tokyo. And I thought, well, I don't know. So I want someone that really wants to come on this trip. And I'm also looking for someone that has something unique that they're wanting to explore. So yeah, and just someone that's excited to go, really.
Okay, I have another question.
Sure.
So something that really piqued my interest of this program is, of course, the food. And then the other part was where you get a chance to meet with entrepreneurs and like multinational companies. Something that I like to do when traveling is just like seeing how this country is suitable for business, because I love business and technology. So I wanted to ask you, like, will we get a lot of opportunities to meet with entrepreneurs? And are these entrepreneurs like people that have been in the US and started businesses in the US and moved to Singapore or Japan, or they started something new, like it's like a startup company in those countries?
That's a good question. That I would say most of the people, I'm thinking about the people in Tokyo and then the people in Singapore, probably most of them worked for a company, say a hotel company or a meeting and event company or an accounting or banking firm, and then moved to Asia. And then while they were there, they were like, you know what this country's missing is this kind of a business, and this is what I'm going to start. And that's what they did. And in fact, the woman who is the tour company that we use in Singapore as well as in Tokyo, that's what she did. She was from the UK and she moved to Japan, and she was like in their human resources department. And she was the one that came up with this idea. She was like, I'm working with all these expats and I'm one myself. And she's like, every time, I get people moved here, they want tours of the place, and then their families come and they want tours. And she was like, I should start a tour company. And so that's what she did. And so she originally, then she moved with this company to Hong Kong, and that like solidified her idea. And she's like, I'm going to do this. So once she was in Hong Kong, she started the company. Then she started another one in Singapore. And then she finally opened one in Japan. And now I think she's working on one in Bali, Indonesia. So that's one person. Another person is a tattoo artist. And, I would say, especially in Asia, only recently tattoos have been acceptable. In Asia, if you had a tattoo, I would say 10 years or before that, you were like it was a sign that you had done time somewhere. But now, because, in the United States and in Western countries, tattoos are acceptable. It is not a sign that you've done time. And so just him, how did he decide to go forward with a company? Because he was an artist anyway, but he's like, I really want to do this. This is what I'm passionate about. And so, he's going to talk with you about how he went forward with something that's still considered very taboo in Japan, just, talking about things like getting funding and getting support, and then and getting clientele. And so just things like that. So, and then one of the people in that we have scheduled for Japan is also a recruiter. So working with a recruiter, maybe you want to live somewhere. What's it like to work for what's it like to work with a recruiter, so that you can say, okay, I'm interested in this country, this country, this country. And what are the types of skills? What do I need to have on my resume so that I can move abroad? So it's kind of all over the place, kind of depending on what you're thinking about. But that's why I've got these different voices and different people that you're going to talk to over the time period, just for you to think about it. Because just like I lived in Singapore, but I didn't live there my whole life. But it might be someplace you would want to go for a couple of years, because I will tell you this, in Asia, there's so much money to be made. And, everybody always thinks Italy or France and Paris. And I agree. I used to work there. It's lovely. The food is amazing too. But where the real opportunity and the growth is in Asia, which is why we all take this long flight to literally get to the other side of the globe, because that's where the money is being made, and it will be made for at least the next 100 years. It's there's just so much growth over there.
Thank you for sharing. I definitely think Japan and Singapore, they're known for their innovation, and that's why I'm just like so excited to even be here.
Yeah.
And my last question for you is, which country do you like more and why? If you had to choose.
It's tough, because I lived in, like I said, I lived in Singapore and I was there for 3 years. And so I have more friends there. And I will say, being someplace really warm when it's freezing here is just so nice in December. So just getting that little break. But the food there is amazing. But Tokyo in Japan is, like in Singapore, English is the one of the 3 languages that people speak. They speak either Chinese, English, or Malay. And usually they speak a combination of all 3. So you can get around and speak English to anyone. And that, when I first moved there, that was really strange, because I was so used to having to speak a foreign language when I was living in a foreign country. But in Singapore, you can speak English and it's so easy. That's why we go to Singapore first, because it's Asia light. Then we go to Tokyo, where if people do speak a second language, it is going to be English. And it is amazing how many signs are in English. And that's when you're like, thank God, English is one of the languages that I speak. Like, I'm like, how did I get so lucky that that English is one of my languages? Because if you don't read Japanese, which I really don't, I know some Chinese, you look at all these signs and you're like, wow. I mean, luckily, again, with Google Translate, you can you can get around really easy and you can speak to people really easily. But for me, I also find that challenge really fun because it's almost like a puzzle. Can I get along? Can I communicate with people in this country where I really can't read anything except for the signs that are translated in English? And of course, the food in Japan is mind-blowing. It really is. I mean, we have Japanese restaurants here and they're just even more amazing in Japan. So it's hard. I can't pick one. I'm sorry, but if you decide to come on the trip, you'll have to let me know which one. We'll have to ask everyone at the end of the trip which country they liked best.
Thank you. And quick question. Have you been to China?
Yes.
And
Oh,
how does Japan compare to China?
completely different. They have a lot of, how do I explain this? They have been at war with each other for a long time. So they're very different. It's ironic. It wasn't until I moved to Singapore that I understood that there was such a big divide between the two countries. You know, right now, because of COVID, China is still very closed off. And for a while, Japan was too. But now Japan has opened up and their food is, believe it or not, is drastically different, even though they both eat with chopsticks. But besides that, they're so different. And I love both places, but I would say the Japanese are really concerned with their health, their mental health, and their physical health, and their spiritual health. And I think that's one of the things that I like when I'm in Japan is it's a feeling of being at peace, even though there's hundreds of thousands of people sometimes at an intersection. There is definitely a sense of peace while you're there, and that I find really enjoyable while I'm there.
Well, thank you for answering my questions. That's all I had for today.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Because these have been great questions that I would never thought to ask, and I'm so glad that you all did. Mikey, what about you?
Would you be able to go back to the itinerary? There was something on there that I had a question about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then someone asked if you know someone on the study abroad trip and you want to room with them, definitely. So let me go back to the itinerary. Yes. So what day? Singapore or Tokyo?
We can do Friday, December 30th, December 1st. That's the first one I see. It says 8:30, meet in the lobby to work on DePaul social media blogs. Can you explain more about that?
Sure. One of the kind of like projects we have, and usually we'll have 1 or 2 graduate students come, or we'll have 1 or 2 students that are really into like their communication major or journalism major or social media person. And usually they want to do that's how they want to get involved for their final project. And so DePaul has always wanted us every year for us to take over their social media blogs. So their Instagram account, as well as write an article for there's like that magazine that comes out. And so we're usually meeting in the downstairs, and it's literally so nice, this breakfast, as I mentioned, but you eat outdoors because it's so warm. So we go through the line, we get our buffet items, and we all kind of come down there at the same time, not by choice, but it just kind of happens. And we usually get a big table that we all sit at, and then we kind of share photos, or we talk about what might be a good tagline or something to put on the Instagram account. So it's really just about sharing photos, and maybe someone got a real cool video of something. We're usually on a WhatsApp account that we're sharing photos and sharing videos, so that then we kind of talk about what we think might be the best one to put up. Because as I said, people are following, the Instagram account, and so they're curious as to what we're doing every day. So it's just it's a real fun way to let other DePaul students as well as graduates, and the people that really enjoy following it are people that have been on the study abroads before. So they get a real kick out of it, along with other alumni. So it's a real fun way for us to share what we're doing and get people excited about our study abroad. And I can keep scrolling down if you want.
I want to say, I think that was my last question. I just remember seeing it and I was like, what does this mean?
Yeah, it's super casual, but it's really fun. Because everyone's doing a good job of taking photos, and when we have a chance to share them all and kind of pick which one we think is the best to share with the DePaul community, it's just, how it is when everyone's looking at their photos together. It's just fun.
With my current study abroad, they recommended everyone like assigning not one specific person, but someone to take pictures, because if everyone is on their phone at the same time trying to take a picture, one person will have a better angle, and it just becomes 1,000 pictures of the same thing.
Yeah. How do I say this? I feel like as a professor, I have no control over people's phones, so people can take photos of whatever they want. And sometimes someone who's not like the professional photographer gets an amazing shot. So I don't want to limit anyone's creativity, that's for sure. I was trying to see if there's anything else on the Tokyo. I mean, obviously, anytime you see something like a bullet train, or the motor coach or whatever, that's all included in the price. And of course, the meals at the Ryokan are included. I try to, like I said, include all your breakfasts are included. It's just all the dinners are on your own. And several of the lunches will be. Once this is all completely confirmed, you'll get a similar itinerary to this, but it'll show you exactly where you would need to pay for something.
That's what I was going to ask. From your experience in Japan, did you find it somewhat hard to interact with like people who live there, being that you don't speak Japanese or read it?
No, we will have tour guides, because like I said, we're going to break into 2 different groups. And so that person is either Japanese that probably grew up or spent some time in the United States, so their English is really good, or they're someone who's from a Western, an English speaking country, and they live in Japan now. But like I said, I'm just like going through my head. I never really had a problem unless I was lost. And then that's when I would type it into Google Translate, the word that I needed or the phrase, and then I would show it to someone, and I was shocked. Like I was lost. I could not find my way out of this one subway station, which, just so you know, where we're going to stay in Shinjuku, that one particular train station has 200 exits. So you could go out of one, but then you need to walk around to get to the hotel because it's on the other side. But I was just trying to find an exit. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to find a lady that's like my age and she will probably take pity on me. And so I showed her, can you show me where the exit is? And she's like, she literally showed me, like, she was like, come with me. And she walked me. So she went out of her way to walk me to an exit. And I was so embarrassed that I couldn't figure it out. And I was just blown away at how nice people were. The people in Tokyo and Hakone are just beyond nice. So, and the same thing with Singapore too. They want to help you. They're so glad that you're visiting their country, and they want to, especially a lot of them want to practice their English with you. So I found it was really easy to meet people, even when I was all by myself. I was shocked at how, whether I went into a store or, was trying to get around, how nice people were. They were really just excited, especially the people that own a store or own a restaurant are really proud of what they've created, and they really want you to have a good time and take a couple of snapshots and put it on Instagram, because they're so proud of what they've created. And especially with COVID, we all haven't really got to travel for 3 years, and especially in Japan, it just recently opened in November of last year. So they're excited to have people back in their country again.
This one's more of a personal question.
Sure.
But I know you said you have been to China, Japan, Singapore. Were there any other Asian countries that you've been to?
Thailand, Indonesia. Where else? I think that's it that I can think of. Yeah.
That is interesting to know.
Love Bali, which is one of the islands in Indonesia, but it's even farther to get to than Singapore. And so most people don't want to go that far with me on a trip, but it's amazing. And then of course I've been to Australia. When I lived in Singapore, it was easy to get to Australia because it was only a 7 or 8 hour flight. And I've been all over Australia, but and that's something I highly recommend, that whenever you all have the opportunity to go to Australia, that's also an amazing place too. It's just not as easy to get a job there as it is to get a job in Asia. Australia is really quite closed to being able to get a job there. It's always been difficult, I'd say, for the last 50 or so years, whereas Asia is really welcoming people to work there, because they know they need brain power, whether it's financial knowledge or computer knowledge. They know that that's people that have been educated in the West, meaning either the United States or someplace in Europe. They like people that have that type of an education, and they know that they need basically our brains to help make their countries better, and our creativity.
Well, thank you for answering all of my questions.
Sure, I'm glad you had a bunch of good ones. Yeah. Well, if there's not any other questions, I'll go ahead and let you all enjoy the rest of your day. And if you've got any questions, you can always email me. I'll type it right here. It's lisa.young@depaul.edu. Sure I did that right. Yes. So feel free to email me. But I look forward to getting your applications if I haven't gotten a chance to see them yet. So thank you so much. I hope you apply. And if you want to reach out over email, I'm happy to set up a time, either answer your questions, or we can set up a time to Zoom one-on-one as well. But I'm really excited about this trip. I can't tell you how excited I am that we're able to travel again post-COVID, and the students really enjoyed last year being able to travel and meeting people their own age in a foreign country. And, that's kind of that's one of the big, for a lot of the students, that was their favorite part. I mean, yes, we ate like crazy, but just getting to make friends, and then they're still in touch with them. I think that's kind of one of the reasons that it's just a study abroad is really special. It's a unique experience. It's, it's different than traveling with your parents. And when we travel as a group like this and we're interacting with others, either at the professional level or at other college students, it's really not even an experience that you can replicate on your own if you're just to go with a friend. So it's a real special time, and I just look forward to going again this year. And so hopefully you all can join. Well, thank you very much. I'll let you all go. Enjoy enjoy this lovely weather that hopefully hopefully it's spring soon. I don't know. May is almost here.
Thank
Before you go, I
you.
just
Have a
wanted
good-
to say one thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for even taking the time to like have this meeting. Just talking to you, I feel really inspired and excited.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. I do too. It makes me want to just get on the plane now. So, but we got it. We got some stuff we got to get prepared. You guys got to get ready and learn about the 2 regions before we get on a plane. But it is a lot of fun. That's the whole goal, is for it to be a wonderful learning experience, but it's also a learning experience that you have so much fun that it's part of your memories forever. And what I have found is it changes most people, because they're like, this is amazing world, and they want to explore more. I mean, just like Mikey was saying, you're going to Berlin. Like, once you start traveling, you'll never stop. And that's what I've found. Some of the most successful people in their careers, no matter what it is, are people that have traveled. So if you travel, it literally opens up your whole life to a whole new journey that you had no idea even existed. So thank you all for taking the time to meet with me today, because I want you to find the study abroad that's definitely going to be a good fit for you and your career and your experience here at DePaul. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.